Hello, everyone. Our book today is about a werewolf. But if you're thinking, you know what, full moon, silver bullet, Lon Chaney, or anything like that, get that out of your mind. Just forget everything you thought you knew about the werewolf myth. And trust me, this one's going to be bloody and brutal. And if you're a fan of gore, you're going to love it. Let's talk about all that right now. All right, so our book today is called All American Werewolf by Antonio Scozze. And this book takes the werewolf mythos and turns it on its head. It's a fresh take, a fresh, very bloody, very violent take on what a werewolf is, some of its attributes, some of the ways to stop it, and things like that. I reviewed Antonio's book, The House on Blackstone Hill, and he did the same thing there with horror, like a haunted house book. He took the haunted house trope, and he made it his own, and he made it extremely violent and extremely gory. And he does the same thing here in this book. Because this book has more than just a werewolf. The werewolf is, of course, the main antagonist of the book, and the man behind the werewolf. But this also concerns a worldwide secret society of satanic worshipers who are in positions of power in the world. They are politicians, they are business people, they come from Hollywood, and they have been chosen through this cult, I guess you can say, through this collective of Satan-worshiping evil people to get to those positions of power so that they can advance the cause of this worldwide coven, I guess you can say. And our character in this book is no different. His name is Garreau, and he's a congressman. He's running for a Senate seat. And then his goal, his mission, since he was a little boy, he has been raised to believe that his goal from this collective, from this cult, is to become president of the United States. He's been in politics for a long time. He's not a very nice man. He's very single-minded and will only befriend and hang around people who can advance his career. And behind the scenes, everything he does, all the policies he's trying to bring forth are just for the sake of this satanic cult. But he's been given a gift. Once he was old enough, he was given the gift to be able to change into werewolf form. But there are some twists to that, and that's what I like about this book, because it doesn't follow the standard tropes that you would find normally with werewolves. First of all, it has nothing to do with the time of the month. Full moon, it doesn't matter. He can recite a spell in a demonic language that only he knows how to pronounce that will instantly turn him into his wolf form. The more he changes into this wolf form, the more invulnerable he becomes to physical damage, which means every time he turns, he gets stronger and stronger and stronger. Bullets will bounce off him. He's vulnerable in a few places, but every time he changes, he just gets more powerful and more vicious and is filled with more bloodlust. Eventually, he only has so many times he can turn until he'll stay in that wolf form permanently. And he'll be almost indestructible, almost like a superhero werewolf creature. But in order to achieve his aspirations, he has to get rid of his competition in these elections coming up. And he changes into the wolf form, breaks into a party one night that's being held by a rival who's catching up to him in the polls. And it is carnage. It is a bloodbath. If you remember that scene from the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie where Leatherface was in the bus with all of these people and he just starts hacking and slicing and chopping people. Yeah, think about it like that, except this is in a cabin and it's a werewolf instead of Leatherface. It's very bloody, very violent. But our main protagonist, one of them is there, and he actually fights it off with an axe, chopping off some of its face and eye and chopping off part of its hand. And of course, when Garou turns back into his human form, he is angry because this affects his physical form as well. And the next time this guy sees Garou, he puts two and two together and realizes what has happened in that cabin. Everybody says it was a rabid bear attack because, of course, nobody's going to believe a werewolf, right? And now he has to live with this. He has to realize he knows what Garou is. Not just a vicious, mean politician that has ambitions of power, but that he's also this evil, supposedly mythological creature that will do anything to silence his rivals. And so he and his girlfriend decide to start investigating Garou and see if there's anything in his background where they could prove that. Because even his girlfriend's like, who wasn't there, she's like, well, it could just be the trauma of what you saw, and you might have imagined things. Everything happened fast, and you were lucky to be alive while this other senator, he was killed, and a lot of the other staff members at this retreat were killed. But he's not buying it because he knows what he saw. And she is a doubter, his girlfriend, until something happens later that makes her a firm believer. And then they have to set off to try to figure out how they can stop Garou, how they can stop his werewolf form, how they can kill him, because once he's on somebody's trail, once he is looking to destroy somebody, he will stop at nothing. And their lives can never be the same because of this. Because Garou knows that they know his secret. And they must be eliminated. They must be wiped out. Of course, he's not going to do it in broad daylight. He still has his political aspirations to attend to. He has to still try to maintain that facade of being a politician for the people and all that. But underneath, he's seething. And he does things because he is gifted with other magic spells that he can kind of see what they're doing, what these other people are doing, what they're thinking. So now it's a race against time because we know there's going to be a showdown. We know these two elements are going to meet, and it's going to be bloody and horrible. And in the meantime, they do find somebody to help, but I don't want to go into that because that's something you should find out for yourself. It's very interesting, the people they receive the help from. And then, of course, at the end, there's a final showdown that is every bit as brutal and bloody as the rest of this book. Like I said, I really, really love when an author takes a standard horror trope. In the last book of his, it was a haunted house. In this book, it's a werewolf. And you might read the titles and think, I know what I'm getting into. And then when you start reading it, it clicks that this is definitely something different, something frightening. And in Antonio's case, the author, he likes to write about things that are very, very bloody. I mean, there's enough blood in here to fill up a swimming pool. There's enough scenes of gore and violence and body parts being ripped off, throats being slit, people getting chopped up with axes, and it just goes on and on and on. So if you are a fan of the gore, you are going to love this book. I would say, if you're not a fan of the extremely bloody or things happening to, again, just like in this last book, there are some children, things will happen to some children in this book and making for some very disturbing sections. But again, he's not glorifying it. They are all purely on the side of evil. These things are happening because the people that are doing it are very evil. They're definitely the bad guys. It's not a glorification of these things. It's part of the plot point. And even though nobody, it's going to be cringy sometimes when you're reading it, like, oh, God, I don't want to read this. But it's well worth it because, you have the ending of the book. You can figure out what happened. And it's definitely good versus evil. And all these bad things are absolutely on the side of evil. in this book. So if you're a fan of blood and gore, if you like fast-paced action, and you want to read something about a werewolf that'll twist it on its head and make you rethink the whole thing, this is definitely the book for you, and I recommend it. I will leave a link down below to the Amazon page if you want to purchase it from there. All-American Werewolf. And I will also leave a link down below to my Twitter feed. If you want to join me on Twitter, I would love to have you on there. As always, thank you for taking some of your time, spending it with me. I really appreciate you guys watching. Thank you. And until we meet again, keep reading spooky, my friends.